July 21st Common Council meeting to order at 6:29 p.m. We've taken a roll call. Everyone's present with Alderperson Zerflu appearing by phone. Next item on our agenda is Pledge of Allegiance and silent prayer.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen. Okay, our first item of business is a reading of the minutes from the previous meetings held on June 16th and June 24th, and those are attachments 1 and 2 in your packet.
Make a motion to accept the minutes of the previous meetings and place on file.
We have a motion by Mr. Koth, seconded by Mr. Katnow. Any discussion? Seeing none, please cast your ballots.
Alderperson Zerflu, how do you vote?
Maybe hit
Hang on a second. Okay, say that again.
Aye.
Sure. Motion carried. 8 ayes and 0 nays. Next item is my appointments to committees, commissions. The first one, and we can do them together, is Mr. Bruce King as a regular member of the Police and Fire Commission to fill a term vacated by Mr. Nash, and that expires July 1st, 2022. And Mr. Jim Neitzel to the Wastewater Treatment Commission, formerly held by Lee Albrecht, which expires June 1st, 2025. What are your wishes?
Make a motion to accept both the appointments to those positions.
Yep. You're fine. We have a motion by Koth, seconded by Mr. Veneman. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, please cast your ballots.
Alderperson Zerflu, how do you vote?
Sorry, I keep talking over you. Aye.
Yeah. Can you turn up the volume?
Can this go up anymore?
Yeah, the mic's on.
Yeah.
Doesn't show. Just kind of quiet. He's not a very loud guy.
Hey Joe, you still there?
I am.
Okay, let's try that.
How about that?
So he's an aye.
Joe, your microphone is going to be on the entire time. Okay?
All good.
Because it usually is, but this way hopefully we can hear you.
Aye. I'm going to vote for him.
Oh,
Motion carried, 8 ayes, 0 nays.
thank you for joining the meeting.
Next item of business is consider resolution extending the emergency declaration proclamation regarding COVID-19 pandemic. See attachment 4.
I know all motions are typically supposed to be made in the affirmative. I'm probably going to make one in the negative here. We've been in this since March, and I think now that we're online with telepresence, remote meetings, the availability of the councils, we've been able to meet and discuss things as needed. So I think we're to the point where if something comes up, the council has the availability to handle issues. So I'm going to make a motion not to extend the mayor's emergency declaration. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll rescind the first motion. I will make a motion in the positive then to extend the mayor's emergency declaration powers.
So we have a motion and a second. I know Mr. Bemke has spoken to me in the past. I don't know if we want to have a further discussion about meetings and how we're going to meet, or, do we continue Zoom? Do we meet as a whole body? Mr. Coe?
I think what we're doing right now seems to be working. I think if we keep the Zoom option in place or the telepresence in place, that should be a good option. I mean, if Rapids does see a spike in the COVID-19 cases, I think it's good to have those options, so I think we should continue to have those Zoom and telepresence in place in case that would need to be used. But I mean, gotta go somewhere, and I think the council should make the decisions.
Sounds good, Mr. Katna?
Thank you. I'm along with what Mr. Coates said. I think with the availability to meet remotely or attend a meeting remotely, I think we can shift this back into where the council will be able to make these decisions in the case of an emergency. In regards to meeting via Zoom, I think the year 2020, with COVID going on or with COVID not going on, I think it's a great tool to have the availability to attend a meeting remotely. I know there's been meetings that I've had to miss and others I've had to miss because of work, not necessarily because I wasn't available, but possibly because I couldn't attend in person. So I think it's a great tool to have and to use. I would like to see that continued, but in terms of the emergency declaration, I think it's, at this time, we could probably bring this to an end.
I guess a question for the city attorney. I think the emergency declaration gives us the authority to meet by Zoom, and I'm not sure if we have anything in place that allows it without the emergency authority. Yeah.
Right. This is Sue. Yeah, there's some question over whether, it's still would still be. I think it's still appropriate to continue to meet however you wish outside of the emergency declaration. I mean, I think you can basically make that as decide that you want to continue to do that for the near future. But I would, in the context of COVID, but I would recommend that if this is something you want to do, in the future after COVID, that then we would craft some language to allow, to address remote meetings and such, and I can start putting something together on that. But I think it's okay to continue to do it now, even if you don't continue the emergency declaration. But if it's something that's going to go on, I think we can come up with some options of continuing to do that and what the rules might be regarding that.
Thank you, Sue. Go ahead, Mr. Katna.
I would just like to add, I've attended, and I know others have attended meetings via teleconference before the emergency declaration. So was there not something in place before then? As I've attended and voted, I know others have as well.
Well, the council didn't specifically have any rules saying it was okay or rules prohibiting it. So usually for purposes of quorum and other reasons, with no objection, we have done that on occasion. But I think it's better to be addressed in, a council rule or policy going forward.
Thank you, Sue. Mr. Kubitschek.
I think that this would be an absolute knee-jerk reaction not to approve this. This is a case that we're authorizing the mayor specifically for COVID protocol, the emergency powers ability to make a decision on behalf of the city. And this is a case where I would compare it to, although this may be a false analogy, but if and we haven't seen a spike in cases, but we're nowhere near out of this pandemic. But again, what a loose association would be, well, I haven't had a car accident in 10 years, so maybe I should not pay my car insurance anymore because obviously I'm a good driver. That's what this implies, is that it's a case where it's only specifically for this pandemic, but if a pandemic comes and we need to shut stuff down, are we able to actually meet as a body? What if 3 or 4 of us come down with symptoms and now we are diagnosed with this? We can't do it. Or at least if someone else is on, tested positive, I sure as heck ain't going to come down here. And so then the connectivity, are we able to meet? Where are we going to do? So that's what this is authorizing the mayor to do it. Just because we haven't seen cases here locally spike doesn't necessarily mean that we're in the clear. But what this does is it protects our own local government by giving one person the authority to make the decisions on our behalf if we can't do it.
Thank you. Any other further discussion?
Yes,
Yeah, put me in the,
Go ahead, Mr. Zerflu.
forgot that.
I'm not gonna rehash what Thad just said, but, the pandemic is still going on. I don't know why we have to rescind this, just for all the reasons you outlined. I'm gonna vote in favor.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yes.
Seeing none. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I actually would like to echo what Thad said, and also add to the fact that so far the mayor has consulted all of us pretty much on any questions, so I would think leaving that power in there, I would vote to leave this in place myself, so.
Anyone else? Seeing none, please cast your ballots.
Could you repeat the motion?
Yep, the motion is to approve the declaration.
Alderperson Zerflu?
Aye.
Motion carried, 6 ayes and 2 nays. Next item is consider a change in polling place from Crossview Commons to East Junior High School to begin with the August 11, 2020 partisan primary election. Ms. Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have been, the East Siders have been voting at Crossview Commons, and because of the COVID pandemic, the Crossview Church has decided that it's not in their best interest to keep that going. They've been an amazing partner. I just want to thank them for allowing us to vote there. They've been really, really wonderful to work with. But understanding that they need to do what's best for their church, they have asked that we find another polling place. So I've called the school superintendent to ask permission to use the field house in the former East Junior High school, and they said yes. So I'm working with the Elections Commission to get in place everything we need for that election, and I'd like to start it in August because I don't want to make a polling place change in a presidential election. So, anybody have questions?
So we have a motion by Mr. Kubiszak, seconded by Mr. Kellogg. Is there any discussion? All right, seeing none, please cast your ballots.
Alderperson Zerflu?
Aye.
Motion carried, 8 ayes, 0 nays. Next item is consider a request from Central Rapids LLC doing business as La Taqueria, Luis Ramon, sorry about the, what's it? Melendez, thank you very much. Agent located at 1345 A Street South for a Class B beer and a Class B liquor license. See attachment 5, and this is a carryover from a previous finance meeting. We had to wait for a timeline to occur before the final approval could be made by council.
Make a motion to approve the liquor license.
So I have a motion by Koth, seconded by Rayom. Is there any further discussions? Seeing none, please cast your ballots.
Alderperson Zerflu?
Aye.
Motion carried, 8 ayes, 0 nays. Congratulations. Next item of business is Consider a public hearing on a request from James Gannigan for an amendment to the city's comprehensive plan, specifically map 7-2 future land use map to classify 610-620 Airport Avenue, parcel ID 3413366 from a mixed residential land use classification to a commercial or mixed use land use classification. Mr. Kearns?
Thanks, Mayor. So this is before the council because to amend the city's land use map within the comprehensive plan, we need to provide a Class 1 notice 30 days prior to the meeting, and when we received the application, we were not able to meet that deadline before the Plan Commission meeting. So there are two requests that the applicant is making. One, to amend the city's comprehensive plan, and two, to rezone the property as identified. And the Plan Commission acted on both of those to approve. One, to approve the mixed-use classification, land use classification on the comprehensive plan, and two, to approve the rezoning to a mixed-use zoning designation. And again, the applicant is here. If you have specific questions for them or you'd want me to elaborate further on the request, I'd be happy to do so.
Thank you. Does anyone have any, do we want to start the public hearing and have a discussion, or it's up to you? Okay, why don't we start the public hearing and then we can have a council discussion after that. So I guess call 3 times. Anybody interested in speaking in favor of the change? Second time I'll call anybody interested in speaking in favor. Lastly, your last chance. Anybody wishing to speak in favor? Okay, let's start with anybody that wants to speak against. And for a second time, anybody want to speak against? I guess assuming a third time, nobody will want to speak against it either. Okay, so with that, let's close the public hearing. And council, any further discussion, Mr. Rayom?
I guess what I just liked, and I listened to the meeting that night, if Kyle will just go over what actually we're doing, just so everybody's clear with it.
Sure. So there's a property on Airport Avenue. It's next to Walgreens. It's been vacant for quite some time. It currently has a zoning of R3, and currently the land use classification on the comprehensive plan identifies a residential type use. So the applicant initially wants to construct a standalone salon type use on the property. However, the current zoning classification does not allow the applicant to construct a salon because it is not a permitted or a conditional use within the existing district. Therefore, they've made the rezoning request to a commercial type zoning classification. In doing so, the very first thing we do on a rezoning is look at what the comprehensive plan says for the property. And right now, the comprehensive plan says that it should be or continue as a residential type use, whether that's mixed use, two-family, or multifamily. And so if we pursued with the rezoning without amending the comprehensive plan, the rezoning would not be consistent with the comprehensive plan, which is the first review criteria for all rezonings. Therefore, the applicant has also requested to amend the comprehensive plan. So essentially, in order to have a rezoning that's consistent with the comprehensive plan, we have to amend the comprehensive plan first and then take action secondly on the rezoning. From a staff perspective, we would recommend approval of both. I think it seems fitting to do so. I think the mixed-use district in particular is a fitting zoning classification that allows for a transition of uses from a more intense commercial use on 8th Street to, again, then a mixed-use type use prior to getting to the single and two-family type uses further west. Right now, the current zoning of R3 would allow for up to 15 apartment dwelling units on the site, which potentially could be more intense than an office type use that would be permitted in the mixed use district. So again, from a land use standpoint, from a zoning standpoint, I feel as though it is fitting to rezone.
And I think we're protected moving forward if the salon use ceases in 10 years or 20 years. There's only a limited number of uses that could operate within the facility, and those uses are compared on pages 100 through, I believe, 102 or 103. I've highlighted in the land use matrix the types of uses allowed within the existing use, or the existing zoning of R3, and then the B2 and B3 zoning classification. Again, the Plan Commission recommended rezoning to B3, which is the mixed-use zoning classification.
And I just wanted to go over that because just to make it clear, what if the development did go through, but we rezoned and did all that stuff like is recommended to do, what could go in there? Or if they did decide to sell in 10 years, what could go in?
Yeah, and the uses are pretty limited under the B3 zoning. So you could not have a restaurant. You could not, well, you could have retail up to 10,000 square feet, but that's via conditional use permit. So, you know, they'd have to come back before the Common Council if they wanted to operate retail. Primarily, it's office-type uses that are permitted. So think of a dental office or a law office. There are a few other uses like a hospice center or a nursing home, but they are also conditional uses, so they would have to come back through Plan Commission and Common Council if, in the future, again, the salon use changed to a different use. So it's not nearly as intense as the B2 district, which is what you see on Grand Avenue and on 8th Street.
Thank you. Mr. Kubaschek.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess as a point of order here, item number 9 was the public hearing that ended. We should be considering the consent agenda for the Plan Commission, and then ultimately, if we want to take this out, talk about that at that time.
Sounds good. So we don't need a motion on that, correct?
So the Plan Commission acted to recommend, so technically, I think the council, because it's a separate agenda item, should take action on the comprehensive plan amendment. And then later, through the approval of the minutes, they would be approving the rezoning then, unless they called out the rezoning and wanted to act separately under the minutes.
Ms. Schell, were you going to speak?
Right. I was going to say this is simply the public hearing, and then the action on this item and the companion item would be taken up as you go through the Plan Commission minutes, and whether you adopt those or not, you can make motions on those.
Okay, thank you. I'll get into reading the Plan Commission report then. Bear with me, it's kind of lengthy. The Plan Commission met at 4 p.m. on July 6, 2020 in the council chambers and via video conference. Members in attendance are on file in the clerk's office. The meeting was called to order at 4:02 p.m. First item was approval of the reports from June 1st and June 15th of the Plan Commission meeting. Motion by Bemke, seconded by Bray to approve the reports from June 1st and June 15th Plan Commission meetings. That motion carried 6-0. Item 2 is Plan-20-0486, Disher Residential LLC, Jeff Disher, for a request to register a non-conforming use daycare within the M1 General Industrial Zoning District at 1421 Pepper Avenue, parcel ID 34123880. Motion by Bemke, seconded by Feith to deny the Plan 20-0486 Disher Residential LLC, Jeff Disher, for a request to register a non-conforming use daycare within M1 General Industrial Zoning District at 1421 Pepper Avenue, parcel ID 34123880. That motion carried 6-0. Item 3 is Plan 20-0455, Teresa Cashman, request for a site plan amendment review to construct a cafe building with drive-through at 3820 A Street South, parcel ID 341386. Motion by Blazer, seconded by Burkhart to approve Plan 20-0455, Teresa Cashman, request for a site plan amendment review to construct a cafe building with a drive-through at 3820 A Street South, parcel ID 3413806, with the following conditions. The first is parking in the front west of the principal building shall not exceed 50% of the total on-site. Secondly, the complete landscape plan shall be submitted for review and approval by the Community Development Department. 3 is a lighting plan shall be submitted for review and approval by the Community Development Department. 4, the details on any refuse enclosure shall be provided for review and approval by the Community Development Department. Next, all applicants applicable permits through the City of Wisconsin Rapids and other jurisdictions such as the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources shall be obtained. Next, necessary plans for erosion control and stormwater requirements per the City of Wisconsin Rapids Municipal Code shall be submitted and approved by the Public Works Department. And finally, the Community Development staff shall have the authority to approve minor modifications to that plan. That motion carried 6-0. Number 4 is Plan 20-0480, Michelle Sweeney and Virginia Shaluki. Public hearing on action on a request for a conditional use permit to operate a hobby dog kennel at 1121 Gardner Street, parcel ID 3402931, zoned R2 mixed residential. The public hearing was called to order at 4:24. A list of people speaking in favor and against are on file in the clerk's office, and the public hearing closed at 5:01. Motion by Bray, seconded by Burkhart, to deny the plan 200480, Michelle Sweeney and Virginia Shaluki, request for a conditional use permit to operate a hobby dog kennel at 1121 Gardner Street, parcel ID 3422931, zoned R2 mixed residential district, citing the current and proposed business does not comply with the hobby kennel definition. That motion carried 6-0, and since that meeting, the requester has withdrawn their request. Item 5, Plan 20-0484, James Gannigan, request for an amendment to the city's comprehensive plan, specifically map 7-2, future land use map, to classify 610-620 Airport Avenue, parcel ID 3413366, from a mixed residential land use classification to a commercial or mixed use land classification. Motion by Bemke, seconded by Blazer, to approve Plan 20-0484, James Gannigan's request for an amendment to the city's comprehensive plan, specifically map 7-2 future land use map, to classify 610-620 Airport Avenue, parcel ID 3413366, from a mixed residential land use classification to commercial or mixed use land classification. And that
Mayor?
motion carried 6-0.
Mayor,
Yes.
there is a correction on these, on item 5 and 6,
Okay.
if you wouldn't mind. So it should say, at the end of the motion for 5, it should say, from a mixed, at the end, the last sentence, from a mixed residential land use classification to a mixed use land use classification. So the commercial should be removed. So again, that was an error on my part with regards to the minutes.
Duly noted. That's on item 5
And then item 6 also should be
to the B3 neighborhood commercial
B3,
district.
so correct.
Okay.
B2 general commercial should be removed, and we will provide corrected minutes if acted upon by council.
Okay, thank you. So item 6, plan, thank you for the break. Plan 20-0484, James Gannigan, public hearing on an action on a request for a zone map amendment to rezone 610-620 Airport Avenue, parcel ID 3413366, from R3 multifamily medium density residential district to B2 general commercial district or B3 neighborhood commercial district. The public hearing was called to order at 5:46 PM. List of people speaking in favor and opposition are on file in the clerk's office. Public hearing closed at 5:59. Motion by Bray, seconded by Feith, to approve Plan 20-0484, James Gannigan, request for a zoning map amendment to rezone 610-620 Airport Avenue, parcels ID 3413366, from R3 multifamily medium density residential district to a B3 neighborhood commercial district. That motion carried 6-0. Item 7 is adjournment. Motion by Bebke, second by Blazer to adjourn. Motion carried 6-0. Meeting adjourned at 6:07 PM. What are your wishes?
I'd like to move to adopt the actions of the Planning Commission.
We have a motion by Bemke, seconded by Kuschak. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please cast your ballots.
Aye.
Motion carried, 8 ayes, 0 nays. Thank you very much. Next item is consider adoption for actions. Consider for adoption the action of the standing committees of the Common Council as follow. Finance and Property held July 7th. Mr. Cole?
Thank you, Your Honor. Property and Finance Committee meeting met July 7th, 2020. Meeting was called to order at 4:55 PM. All members of the Property and Finance Committee were present. List of others is on file in the clerk's office. Item number 2 was consider and approve a license agreement with Urkel Worldwide to allow them to use of city-owned rail track for storage of rail cars in Rapids East Commerce Center. This item is held over till the August 4th, 2020 Property and Finance Committee meeting. Item number 3 was review and consider proposals to replace a snowplow wing on 2 single-axle patrol trucks. It was moved by Coates, seconded by Kellogg, to approve the purchase of 2 snowplow wings from Stainless and repair for an amount not to exceed $27,700. Motion carried. Item number 4 was consider a special event application including a street closure, noise variance, food vending, and an alcohol license. Hold on. The alcohol license premise extension onto a public right-of-way, 2nd Street south between East Grand Avenue and Birch Street, including the sidewalk on the east side of 140 East Grand Avenue building from BCA Enterprises LLC, Corey L. Abbott, agent, doing business as B's Tap House, located at 140 East Grand Avenue, for our 2nd annual Never Forgotten Honor Flight street dance to be held Friday, September 11th from 3 p.m. to 12 a.m. midnight. It was moved by Coates, seconded by Kellogg, to approve the special events application, street closure, noise variance, food vending, and alcohol license premise extension onto public street and right-of-way, 2nd Street south between East Grand Avenue and Birch Street, including sidewalk on the east side of 140 East Grand Avenue building, for BCA Enterprises LLC, Corey L. Abbott, doing business as B's Tap House, for the street dance to be held Friday, September 11th from 3 p.m. to 12 a.m. midnight. Item number 5 was consider a temporary Class B beer and Class B wine license application for Assumption Athletic Association located at 445 Chestnut Street for a Royal Golf Scramble to be held on Friday, August 7th, 2020 from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. It was moved by Coates, seconded by Kellogg, to approve the temporary Class B beer and Class B wine license for Assumption Athletic Association located at 445 Chestnut Street for a Royal Golf Scramble to be held on Friday, August 7th, 2020 from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Motion carried. Item number 6 is beverage operator licenses. It is motion by Coates, seconded by Kellogg, to approve the beverage operator licenses. Motion carried. Item number 7 was consider request from Alderperson Coates to suspend the city's open container ordinance on Thursdays through Saturdays, 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. from July 2nd, 2020 through September 5th, 2020, to allow the public outside of bars and restaurants to socially distance. This would be limited to beer and wine only, no hard liquor in plastic or aluminum containers only. No action was taken. Item number 8 was consider an ordinance which would allow retail alcohol licenses to request to temporarily extend their premises outdoors because of COVID-19. It's a motion by Coth, seconded by Kellogg, to accept the recommendation of the city attorney to give general provision for premise extensions for taverns to apply for a premise extension on Monday through Saturday from the hours of 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. for serving of alcohol in the area vacated and cleaned by 11 p.m. The provision will be effective through November 1st, 2020. Motion carried. Item number 9 was consider a request from Alderperson Coth to further geo-restrict the pool to city residents and municipalities that have officially partnered with the city should a significant number of city residents be turned away with a current limit of 400. Motion by Coth, seconded by Kubaschak, to send the item to full council for consideration at the regularly scheduled meeting on July 21st, 2020. Motion carried. Item number 10 was an update on the COVID-19 business grant. Community Development Director Kyle Kearns updated the committee on the COVID-19 business response grant. The program approved 62 grants totaling $79,519.55. Item number 11 was update on the wayfinding sign design project. Community Development Director Kearns updated the committee on the wayfinding sign design project. Item number 12 was discussion regarding funding or financing for the university year program. It was motioned by Coth, seconded by Kellogg, to approve funding for the university year program for the aquatics, from the aquatics budget and the downtown project from room tax. Motion failed. Motion by Coth, seconded by Kellogg, to approve funds from the contingency to pay the university program contingent on an itemized amount being presented to the full common council, amount not to exceed $10,000. Motion carried. Item number 13 was consider for approval a Wisconsin Department of Administration Routes to Recovery Act. It was moved by Coth, seconded by Kubaschak, to accept the Wisconsin Departments of Administration Routes to Recovery grant in the amount of $304,146. Motion carried. Item number 14 was consider for approval budget resolution number 2. It was moved by Coth, seconded by Kubaschak, to approve budget resolution number 2. Motion carried. Item number 15 was audit of the bills. It was moved by Coth, seconded by Kellogg, to approve check number 4102 to 4531. Motion carried. Item number 16 was to set the next meeting date. The regularly scheduled council meeting, or the next regularly scheduled meeting, will be held August 4th, 2020 at 4:45 p.m. Item number 17 was adjournment. It was moved and seconded to adjourn. The meeting adjourned at 6:48 p.m. Because this is a lengthy report, I will stop to see if any members of the council want any specific items held out. Scott?
I'd like to have number 9 and 12.
We have 9 and 12 held out. Any other items? Okay, I will make a motion to approve the report with the exception of items 9 and 12 being held out.
So we have a motion by Mr. Coth and a second by Mr. Kellogg. Mr. Rayo.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm not going to disagree with the action was taken on a couple items, but with the COVID still going on, and that we passed the extension of the emergency declaration and whatnot, with these events that were liquor licenses and that we're approving for these different events where there's going to be a mass gathering of people or whatever, I know we're not, I'm sure probably, but should we be encouraging them to social distance and that type of stuff that scientists and doctors all say that we should be doing to prevent an eruption in cases. As of now, en masse, I'm not going to go that far right now, but with the explosion in different parts of the country, and a lot of it is being blamed on opening too quick, but not following what guidelines that there were put down by the CDC of how to flatten this thing out, and it's running rampant in a very good percentage of the country now. So to approve these things is one thing, but I think we should also be proactive in that we try to encourage the social distancing to keep the transmission down, hopefully no transmission, and that because these things are just opening up to the possibility of what could happen. And we don't want that. And I also know that from at least the paper a couple weeks ago or whenever that a music fest that was held out in Auburndale, that they had several cases that came out of that. So on the one hand, you don't want to deny these events, but on the other hand, it behooves us, I think, to encourage proper protocol, following the social distancing and that type of thing. And I say that knowing full well probably that those places that'll get approved tonight won't do that. So I just want to make that, put that on, come out for me to say that this evening, because, ladies and gentlemen, I really and firmly believe that we're playing with fire. And I don't think anybody here wants us to even have to contemplate what to do if we start looking like California, Arizona, Texas, Florida, Carolina, Mississippi. So that's we have lawsuits over it. The governor said in Georgia, they can't do that. City of Atlanta is suing him, and that's where it was a very hard-fought election on that governorship a couple of years ago. What came out of it, and so I just think all of us, I think, should take a look at it. But I think these groups that we're giving this okay to, and just to move it outside isn't necessarily preventing something from happening, because the people are still going to congregate around the beer stand, dance floor, whatever. And as I just mentioned earlier here, with the music fest that took place in Auburndale, it creates, to me, the possibility of what could happen. And extending that emergency declaration, I hope, Shane, you don't have to use it, but we extended it for the reason that, but it's not for us then to encourage something to happen that Shane has to use that declaration. So I guess that would be my 2 cents worth on that. Hopefully somebody is listening from these different groups, and that they will try to somewhat social distance them with that. And also, I guess, I would like to just, a question on number 8, if I may, and that's where to give the general provision for a premise extension. Maybe Sue or somebody, could you just, or Jennifer, whoever, Sue or whatever, could just give a short definition of what that is, or what would be involved to do it.
Well, this would allow establishments that have alcohol licenses, which could be a bar or a restaurant, to extend or to file an application to temporarily extend their licensed premises to an outdoor area that they own, or it could be a sidewalk in front of their premises, or maybe even a parking lot or other public property. They would file an application, and it would be reviewed by the city to determine if that area is appropriate or not. And then they could we could agree to temporarily extend their alcohol premises within the hours that are listed. I think it's between 3 to 10, and then have to vacate the area by 11 p.m. And that would only be effective through November 1 of 2020, and this is to encourage, instead of people being indoors, to move outdoors. And for those establishments that don't presently have outdoor area, to allow them to use their own property or perhaps public property for that.
Thank you, Michelle. Any further questions? You're good? Mr. Cole.
I just wanted to respond to Alderperson Rayom's comments and say that I do agree with what Tom's saying. This is still a classification of a pandemic, and all it takes is someone to get in their car and travel, and it could be among us. In my own personal experience, I found that the more you attempt to legislate this or have mandatory mask policies, it seems like the more people grape and rebel against it. As the list of private retailers that now require masks grows, the more pushback you're having from the public. And I guess my only opinion on it is that when you're putting rules on them, they don't like it, so they want to buck the system one way or another. And I think Tom is on the right track of, if we can't mandate it, to at least strongly give a strong recommendation from the city that if you want to have these events, to at least, regardless what your opinion is on COVID-19, that you at least do your best to follow the guidelines to prevent it from going from person to person. I think that's the least we can do without over-legislating it.
Thank you, Mr. Koth. Mr. Venman.
Yes, I agree with Mr. Koth and Mr. Rayom. We definitely need to encourage safety, but by the same token, I trust that our citizens, particularly the owners of these establishments, have a business to run and don't want to jeopardize their long-term things. So I think that we trust that they are going to utilize proper safety precautions for themselves rather than legislate whether they can or not. The point is, they are allowed to do that at this point, so we have to trust that they do that. And I would think that that would behoove them to do that in terms of, excuse me, for their livelihood. So if people are gathering 12 people to a table that holds 3, I know if I owned a bar or an establishment, I would try to spread them out or kick them out. And because it's going to cause a problem, like Tom even mentioned, Mr. Rail mentioned, excuse me, with potential lawsuits and things of that nature. So I trust our business population to do the right thing.
Mr. Catno.
Thank you. I would say that these establishments are open. People are going to them. Oftentimes they're packed. I feel this is a tool we're giving them to temporarily extend their premises outdoors so that they can social distance more than they're able to right now. So I think this, as far as social distancing and still trying to have these businesses be successful, this is a great tool we're giving them versus not giving them this ability and people going there anyway and cramming into these places.
Thank you. Mr. Kubitschek.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Are we talking about two different things here? I'm getting confused because I thought at first we're talking about an application for temporary Class B licensure for the Athletic Association's golf outing, and then now are we talking about something else with the premises extension? What are we talking about?
Shane, I just had, it was a question that I raised on, it's two different subjects, which is the question or comments that I made on both of the subjects. I wasn't trying to change anything that was being done, just, I guess, put my feelings out on them and to encourage people to follow the social distancing and that type of thing to keep from becoming what other parts of the country are. So there's no, I'm not putting anything in for regulations or anything like that to at this point in time to do anything further than that, but just to encourage and to remind the business owners and the people, not just the business owners, but the people that go and participate in that, you know, they're part of the solution to this problem in this country that's going on too. We're all in it together. So.
Thank you, Mr. Kubitschek. Anything further? Okay. So we have the balance of the report, item 9 and 12, thank you, are being held out. So we're going to vote on the balance. Seeing no further discussion, please cast your ballot.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Zerflu. Motion carried, 8 ayes, 0 nays. Item number 9, Mr. Koth.
Who held those out?
I did.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Kellogg.
Yeah, I held
Yes.
both out just because they're both discussion items, so we might want to start with 9, where I think it's Mr. Coth that brought that up. Yeah. Number 9?
Okay, so item number 9.
Well, I guess just to get it started, then I'll make a motion. Oh, there's no action taken. Consideration to the full city council. So I guess I'll just start the discussion if that's okay, Your Honor.
Yep, go right ahead.
When we voted to open the pool up last month, we limited the capacity to 400 people. And there's concern with the capacity of the pool of what's going to happen should city residents start being turned away. The city residents that live here, the taxpayers that live here in this community, they're the ones that are paying for this pool, that are building it. And I just want to make sure that the people that are paying for the pool get to use the pool, that we're not kicking out residents to make way for somebody from one of the adjacent municipalities. And when this item was at committee, before any action was taken by the council, we wanted to at least give it some time to see if people have been turned away from the pool and approximately how many people have been turned away from the pool and what the wait times for people to get into the pool were. And if this is something that we need to do, and if we do need to use this, that we restrict that the 400 restriction is restricted to the city of Wisconsin Rapids and any municipality that comes out and officially partners with us, then they would be included into that 400 if they officially partner with us on operations of the pool. Otherwise, if restricting it to the city, we still get our 400 capacity that we can operate, then we're making sure that we're taking care of our city residents first.
Thank you. Mr. Katna.
Thank you. So this has been a hot button issue in the community since the pool opened. I would like to start with the aquatic center has been great. I've been down there several times. I've gotten feedback from residents. For the most part, it's operating terrifically. People are enjoying it. I think it's been a great bright spot in our community this summer that we've all needed with COVID and the news of the mill. So I think overall this has been great for the community. I do have concerns with the capacity, being that we are at 400 right now. I've gotten calls from residents that have had to wait. I myself have had to wait. This weekend I got a call from a resident who is a season pass holder who was told that 35 people needed to come out in order for him to get in. Obviously, he was upset with that. My thought on it is the residents, we're really paying, or they are paying more than what non-residents are. No matter which way you slice it, we're paying for it with our taxes, and then the entry fees for daily are only $2 less than what a non-resident is paying. So I have an issue with that as well. My main concern for the rest of the summer, though, is that the Wisconsin Rapids residents get access to the aquatic center. They're the ones whose tax dollars have paid for it. I have asked for data and reporting on this. I know Joe is working on getting that. I think that information would help us with guidance on how to react to this. But at this time, with residents having to wait or getting turned away or the issues with capacity, the easiest way to me right now to fix all this is restrict it to the city of Wisconsin Rapids. That would also help with the spread of COVID if we wanted to go that route. But right now, I think it's important that we make sure that every resident or no resident gets turned away. And the way to do that would be to limit it to strictly residents. I don't know if there can be a motion made on this since no action was taken, or?
I believe you could make a motion if you want to, because, yeah.
Well, yeah, I would like to go with what was mentioned at the Property and Finance Committee, in that we should geo-restrict the pool to city residents unless municipalities have officially partnered with the city, and that way we can take the current limit of 400 and our residents can use that up. So that will be my motion, is that we geo-restrict the aquatic center attendance to city residents only unless municipalities decide to partner with the city.
So we have a motion by Mr. Catna. Is there a second? Do you,
Not a second, but can Joe give us any information that we can base our vote on?
yes, I was going to, can we have a second by Mr. Koth? I was going to ask if,
I'll second it if you.
okay. Yeah, Mr. Koth already beat you to it, so if you would like Mr. Terry to come up and kind of give us an update.
Thank you. So the pool has reached capacity on just about every day that we've seen a sunny day for the whole day. The reports that I've gotten back from staff is that when we have reached capacity, the wait times are anywhere from seconds to minutes. I did hear that there was approximately 35 people that were waiting this last Saturday, that this was our busiest day yet, just this past Saturday. For the most part, the waits have been fairly short. The folks that come in the morning and stay for 3 or 4 hours, their stay is extending into that 2 o'clock hour, 2:30 hour, and some of the folks that are coming in the afternoon, are showing up at about that time, and generally it's been working itself out. We only have been open now for 2 weeks, and so I don't yet have a report to submit as far as percentage of residents versus non-resident patrons. I will say the city has sold season passes to residents and non-residents, and I guess at this point in time, unless we saw a situation where we could be sure that the issue is that we have a lot of non-residents on site, that we let this play out a little bit longer, because it's challenging enough just dealing with the geo restrictions. If we have to talk about what kind of policies does the council want to put in place for refunds to those that had purchased season passes, that type of thing, that's going to be a problem. And I am concerned that, on days where it hasn't been that busy, we are depending on the members of the surrounding community to help populate that facility and improve our concession sales as well. So, right now we are touching that threshold of being filled for short periods of time during the day, and I think the facility is operating as optimally as it can right now. So I would just encourage you all to think about the potential ramifications, not knowing at this point how many of those patrons are resident versus non-resident, as to what further restricting, especially since we have opened and people have purchased those season passes. Are there any other questions that I can answer directly?
Do you know when a report will be ready? I guess my concern is, I was hoping to have one before tonight, because at this point, we're looking at 6 weeks left approximately of the aquatic center. If we don't meet again until next month, I get what would be the even point of going down this path. I think if we take the steps needed tonight, and then we can go about figuring out how to refund those that have season passes, or I can adjust my motion to grandfather those in that are non-residents that purchased season passes or have punches left. I'd be happy to do that. But I feel like something needs to be done tonight because of the timing of this situation, and that there's just not that much left of summer to make changes at a later date.
I just hope that there is actually the problem that you're concerned about, that, you know, we're not seeing a significant problem from the staff view working there every day. I just hope that we're actually addressing a problem that is a real problem. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Terry. Are you amending?
I'll amend my motion to include non-residents who have purchased season passes or have punches left on their cards.
You good with that, Mr. Coth?
I'll consent to the change, yep.
Sorry, Mr. Veneman. You're going to withdraw, so Mr. Bemke.
So I don't disagree that this was, I mean, the taxpayers are paying for this Wisconsin Rapids. I think they should have first shot at this. But I also think we just approved these rules a month ago, and now we're going to change them. If we don't have a problem, I say we've got 5-6 weeks left in the season, ride this out. We don't want an empty pool either. I've gotten 0 calls on the pool. The only feedback I've gotten is positive. I've been down there a few times. I drive past a couple times a day. I do not see long lines. I just think we're creating all kinds of problems for the staff down there, and I would hope we can ride this out and learn some lessons for next year. Thank you.
Mr. Kellogg.
I agree with Mr. Bemke. Theoretically, I agree with the motion. I mean, we're paying for it and we should be the ones, but if there hasn't been a problem identified, and if the people in the residences around the city participate, and then next year say, hey, it's going to change. I mean, if they don't know what they don't know, and if they go to the park, they see how nice it is, and they want to have their city participate with Wisconsin Rapids. But if we close them out and they don't have a chance to go, then they have nothing to compare with, unless you look over the fence and see how wonderful it is. So it just seems to me it's not broken per se, and apparently there's weights, but not extensive. And it's a way of getting the other cities encouraged to consider participating next year, or the rules will change, and we'll make those changes. So that's where I'm coming from. So I just assume maybe keep it the way it is and ride it along and encourage those other cities to participate as a result of giving them opportunity this year.
Thank you, Mr. Kellogg. Mr. Katnow.
Thank you. I would like to note that on top of what you guys have said, we do have, after this summer until next year, to adjust all these. I think for this year, being that we're at the 400 capacity instead of the 800, we should make this quick change to accommodate our residents. And then next year, hopefully, we're open at 800 and this isn't a problem. However, I do think that restricting this will incentivize these other communities who have had an opportunity to come to the table and work with us, to come to the table and work with us. Right now, if I was them, I see no reason to do that. Their residents pay $2 more than ours do, and they're able to have the same amount or right to a spot in the park as our residents do. So I think this is a huge incentive, if we go this route, for them to start working with us. And we do have until next year to either pull back these restrictions. Once we know we'll be up to full capacity. I just think for our residents and protecting their rights to what their tax dollars paid for, this is the route to go right now.
Thank you, Mr. Katnow. Mr. Terry.
There might be another potential solution for something like this as well. Instead of prohibiting some of the neighboring municipalities, we do have a limit of 400, although it may be a little more challenging to administrate. It might be possible that, okay, well, once we get to 350, from that point on, we don't allow residents and season pass holders to utilize the facility. I don't know if that's a reasonable compromise or not, but I just thought I'd throw it out there as something to chew on a little bit. Thanks.
Joe, just if I could ask, I know I'm not speaking on order, but just a question for Joe's statement. Given the day and age that we live in, with everybody being upset about one thing or another, if we went that route at the 350 route, and then we said, hey, it's season pass holders or city residents only, are we potentially creating a situation where somebody can cry discrimination? I'm from Grand Rapids, and, the other, in that first 350, there were people from Grand Rapids in there, and, just because I'm 351, I can't go in there because I'm from Grand Rapids. I mean, do they have a legitimate beef on that if we implement a policy like that, or?
I don't think so. I think, I think whatever policy the city decides to approve in the purview of the council is an appropriate policy. I have had some communication from one of the surrounding municipalities that's looking for data at the end of the season to see, well, what kind of percentages were resident to non-resident. If there is a lot of non-resident, especially if we can isolate members of that particular community, they expressed that, well, they'd certainly be more interested in participating if they saw that, yeah, their residents indeed are using it quite a lot. So I do think whatever we do is being observed and will have some impact. Like Jake said, that impact may be beneficial no matter what we do, but it will have an impact on their view of the facility, view of the city. I think is the better we can try to partner with our neighbors and work with them, to find a solution that still focuses on the fact that the residents of the city of Wisconsin Rapids are the ones that are, carrying the burden on this thing financially, that there is some preferential treatment there, I think is completely appropriate.
Thank you. Mr. Memke has a question.
So, do we have a website or a Facebook page for the pool?
We do, yes.
Is it something that we could update, that maybe I'm going to check this Facebook page or website before I pack the kids up in the car? They're at $3.99, I'm not going right now.
So we've talked about that, and we're challenged with that right now because we've got staff using manual counters and doing the math so that we know how many came in, how many left, take the difference, and that's what we've got on deck. If we were to try to enter that data, and believe me, we're talking about this, our IT staff and GIS staff have been working on a video and information that can be on the display that we're setting up in the admissions area, where besides posting the rules and some cool video and the take time to have fun type theme of the facility, we also want to post a weather radar map, because that's been an issue for some people. They show up, they haven't really watched the weather, they're there for 2 hours or whatever. The day pass is a single-use pass, so if you leave, you don't come back unless you pay again. Another thing is the count. And we've created a method for staff to enter that, and it would display the time that it was updated so that you'd have an idea how close to real time is this. But as they're busy, there's not a lot of time to do that extra step. So I know that's a long answer to a short question. I guess the answer is we're working on it. And because it is a web-based data entry, we can also link that to the website so anyone could see it from anywhere, not just on the TV screen at the pool.
Okay, this is, I mean, you're busy, I get it. And so what about something as simple as an LED sign out front that says we're at $3.99, a red flag up a pole that says we're full, a green flag up, you know, I mean, it would at least save them the trouble of getting the kids up there doing whatever and finding out that we're going to have to wait for 20 minutes, or...
Well, a lot of times that wait is 20 minutes and that's it. So, I mean, the only time we're at capacity might be for half an hour, where there's a little bit of a wait for a short period of time, and then enough people have come and gone where we're not at capacity anymore. It really fluctuates and depends on the day. And we can try to come up with ideas to do that. But as people are waiting in line, most of the time the line isn't out the door, or if it is, it isn't far out the door, and people are generally, you know, continuing to move as people come and go.
As long as we have Mr. Terry up here, anybody else have any questions for him? Yep.
Joe, when people come in, does that go by the township that they live in, or a mailing address?
So they're giving a mailing address, and our GIS specialist has created an application where the staff member can type in that address, and it'll show it on the map, and it'll show a big green symbol and say the town that they're in, and they're okay to use the pool. Or it'll say that they're in a town, it'll be a big red box that shows up, and it'll say they're in a town that's not permitted to use the pool. So it is a process, and, you know, and with that, it does take time. Normally, on any other day, you'd come in and pay your money and be on your way. But we are recording addresses for all patrons, so that, to try to be responsible, so that if we did find out that a patron was infected with COVID, we can work with the health department in their contact tracing efforts to make sure that proper notification is made. So,
Yeah.
so we're asking for an address, but it's showing up by township. So I'm thinking that your question is, for example, if it's a Wisconsin Rapids zip code, are we letting anyone in with a Wisconsin Rapids zip code? The answer to that is no.
Okay, and I guess with that, and that's getting on the track, I guess, but, you know, the discussion of just regulating it to citizens of Wisconsin Rapids, does somebody from, say, Grand Rapids that has a mailing address of Wisconsin Rapids, is that then differentiated on there?
It is differentiated, yes.
Okay.
Yes. And it is now anyway, COVID or not, because we do have a separate pass structure for residents versus non-residents. So we really don't go by zip code. It's your physical living location and what municipality that you reside.
Yeah. And I don't know how long others wanted to speak before me, so if they want to do that, I don't have any more questions, really.
Okay, let's, just limit questions for Joe, and then we can get back in the speaking order.
Basically, I have a concern. You have the kiddie pool where you have a parent coming, sitting on the side, and the kids in the water, and so forth, and then a parent sitting on the side is taking the space of a teenager who wants to be in the bigger pool or on the slide and so forth. So I was just thinking that if we had one adult for 25 students, or 25 children in that area, that would be about 16 adults. You know, I mean, it'd be interesting if you could, rather than 400, go 416, 400. I mean, realize you're still thinking of the space of the whole area, but I'm thinking of the kids in the water, kids on the slide, kids in the pool. And those 16 adults watching their showing in the pool or small pool or what have you are not engaged in the water and so forth. It's just something to think about in changing it from 400 to 425, 416. Just because I've driven past there, and I see maybe 10 parents sitting on chairs or things, and that's 10 spaces where kids aren't in the pool.
So I guess part of it is that, and I don't have the rule open in front of me, but children of a certain age need to have a parent within reach, and children that are 13 and under need to have a parent or guardian on site. So that is a requirement. In general, I will say that most of the parents or guardians that I've seen are using the facility. They're enjoying it with their kids. I don't see too many that show up and pay the non-swim fee and they're on the deck in street clothes. When I show up, I'm the oddball down there in street clothes, so.
Thank you, Mr. Terry. And I guess just to, I'll interject a moment of time here that I do like the idea of, as we get near capacity, that Rapids residents would be moved to the front of the line, because I think the non-residents will help fill the slower days, but then as on the nicer days that are busier, then the residents would be moved to the front of the line and get preferred treatment. Mr. Veneman, sorry.
Yes, I guess I think anytime a Rapids resident is turned down because there's a non-resident in, it's a travesty really, just in terms of tax dollars. And I guess we haven't ever discussed making it 500. I don't know where we're at on that, but we've never discussed why we're at 400, because it's half? Is that, we've never discussed changing the capacity. I guess if we were going to vote on, I would vote for this motion as it stands, grandfathering, as Mr. Catnoy added, the grandfathering, the people, the non-residents that have paid for the season passes. I would probably consider, if we have had capacity issues, I would probably consider allowing non-residents if we raise the capacity.
Thank you. And originally we started with that number because it was a discussion with the health department. So that's where that number had come from. Mr. Coth?
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm really conflicted on which way to vote. I brought this to the Property and Finance Committee meeting because if we're hitting capacity and city residents are being churned away, that's not right. Jay has a good point about not having the pool sit empty. I've been down there with my family and have not been able to get in, personally. And I've taken my kids down there as much as I can since that pool's opened. And I guess the part, this isn't going to be right to say, but the part that really angers me on this is every single time our city is in a position to do something to help our city, not related to the pool, but another project, whether it's building something, moving something, fixing a road that, one of our roads that goes through an adjacent municipality, something. Every time this city is in a position to do something to benefit our city, the people that live in the townships come here and tell us 101 reasons why we can't do it. And I'm sick of it. I think it's time Wisconsin Rapids comes first. They built this pool, they're paying for it. Every one of us. Not the person that lives out in the country and pays half of what we pay for in property taxes. When it was time for us to build the pool, not one township or village or neighboring city was here to say, let us help you. We don't have a pool anymore, let us help you. Nothing. Because they didn't want the property taxes on their house to go up. But it's okay. It's okay, Wisconsin Rapids. You guys take the increase per $100,000 value on your house. You guys flipped the bill. 8 of us sat here. And we had to make a decision when all the funds for the pool that we thought were going to be here weren't here. We had to make the decision to vote for $5 million in additional bonding to build the thing, which affected every taxpayer in our city. Not one adjacent municipality said, let us help. But by God, the day we opened that pool and the lines were drawn, we heard about it. We heard about it when other municipalities weren't included. Well, where were you with your township willing to help us? Now we're in the midst of COVID-19. Nobody planned for this. Nobody planned for this. We could have people from Wausau using the pool this summer. We could have, if we would be allowed to operate at the capacity that the pool is designed for. That pool was designed to be a regional aquatic facility. It's designed to service, correct me if I'm wrong, but when we were being told the plans to build this facility was designed to service a range of 60,000 people that live in the region. We can't do it. We can't do it, not this year. We had to draw a line somewhere. We drew our lines. We drew our lines. I think city staff did a wonderful job picking how they were going to draw the lines. Is it fair? No, it's not fair. But life isn't fair. I can't go and use the Stevens Point compost because I'm not a resident there. It's not fair. That's the way it is. But is it fair to the people of the city of Wisconsin Rapids that are now paying on this pool for the next 20, 30, 40 years to be told, nope, sorry, you can't use the pool because we made an accommodation for a municipality to use the pool. They're only paying $2 more than you are for a non-resident rate to use the pool, but sorry, come back later. Is it people getting turned away every day? No. Do they have slow days at the pool? Yeah. I don't know. I'm conflicted on how to vote. I really am. But I am sick and tired of those seats being full when this city goes to do something. And like I said, we're given 101 reasons why we shouldn't do it. It's going to affect this, it's going to affect that. You're going to ruin this for us, you're going to ruin that for us. Don't do it. Vote it down. Okay. I listen to them. I take what they have to say in consideration. I try to be the good neighbor. I really do. That's why I voted no or sent some things back for reconsideration, because I've tried to be a good neighbor to our neighbors. But here we are in a position where when we built this pool, we've asked for help. I think we've tried to be the good neighbor. Where has been the favor been returned to us? Where has somebody knocked on our door and said, let us help? In my 5.5 years of being on the council, I don't recollect one other municipality ever coming in here and saying, let us help you with this. Not once. Not once. But I have been told numerous times why we should not engage in a project, or why the city of Wisconsin Rapids should bear the bigger financial burden on a project. So I'm not trying to be hate-filled or resentful towards our neighboring municipalities. But gosh darn it, guys, these are our residents, the people that elected us to put us here. The people that put us here when we spent well over $10 million to build this facility. And I'll be gosh darned if I watch our city residents be turned away from the pool for another municipality to ride it out for 5, 6, maybe 7 weeks, for next year for everything to go back to normal. And then even if there's a municipality that's considering seeing how many residents use the pool, then all of a sudden next year they have a change of heart. Nope, sorry. Well, our data shows, only 5% of our residents use their pool. We're not going to partner with you guys. Everything's back to normal anyways. I really don't know how to vote on this one. I'm listening to the discussion, trying to figure it out. But I stand by my remarks that I think this time, Wisconsin Rapids needs to go to the front of the line, not the back. No further comments.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. Mr. Benjamin?
Yes, I agree with pretty much everything Mr. Koth just said. And just first I want to reiterate, I meant to say this before, I want to kudos to Mr. Terry and the staff, and I've been there several times now, and the social distancing requirements are being met the best you could, suggestions, I guess, are being met the best they could. Continued reminders, going around cleaning, that part has been done really well. But this is something we're trying to talk about now. We're not really talking about next year, and right now, we are turning away residents. If we were going to be talking about next year, I'm pretty much telling you I'm going to come to the table in April when we're talking about this, and I'm going to say the disparity between the amount that non-residents and residents are paying is not enough. My personal feeling, if we're at $4 and $6, I would think something more like $5 and $10 would make more sense to me. And it is, we're paying considerably more than non-residents are. Residents are paying considerably more when it comes down to their taxes than non-residents are, and that's just not fair. So I would definitely vote to limit it to residents the remainder of the year.
Thank you. Anyone have anything further?
Just a quick comment.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
So, I mean, my only hesitation with that would be if the city residents and those that officially partnered couldn't reach us to that capacity, which we're already being hamstrung on by COVID-19. My only resignation, I don't disagree with anything that was just said.
Thank you. Anyone have anything further? So we have a motion to restrict the geo-restriction of the aquatic center to City of Wisconsin Rapids residents only. And also current non-resident season pass holders.
And if they have punches left.
Yeah, I think city residents are kind of the only ones that could get the punch cards. So I think it's just non-resident season pass holders.
Originally, you included municipalities that have officially partnered with the city.
Correct, which currently there's none, but throughout the season, if some do decide to come to the table, they would be included in that.
Perfect. Is everyone clear on the motion? Any further discussion? Please cast your ballots.
Nay.
Motion carried, 7 ayes, 1 nay. Moving on to item number 12.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yep.
It's the Property and Finance Committee meeting held tonight. The Property and Finance Committee meeting.
We have item 12 on, yep, the holdout item.
Sorry.
No problem.
Scott held that one out too. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I keep giving that to Koth.
I held that out because you had more information that you may want to share with us.
Correct. So I did email you, and I also put on your desks the cost breakdown of the invoice. And I think that was in the motion that you needed that breakdown. And Mr. Kern can also answer any questions regarding up to this point, if you have any. So once this invoice is taken care of, our obligation with, financial obligation with them, it'll be satisfied. Go ahead, Mr. Kellogg.
But we will, from my understanding from what you mentioned to us or me, or that we'll still be working with them, but this will take care of our obligation up to this point.
So I was going to bring it up at the end of the meeting that
Okay.
in our conversations with the people from University here, they wish to continue a relationship with the city, and they have agreed that, I wanted to take care of one part for the second part, and so next month we'll bring forth at Finance that they would like to continue that relationship since there's already projects and graduate students, and they would do it at no additional cost.
Okay.
So that we would see it to the end of the program, incurring zero additional dollars on this program.
Okay, just want to clarify that.
Any questions, motions? Correct.
I'll make a motion to pay the amount that was submitted in front of us to close this out at the amount of $12,528.22.
Thank you. We have a motion by Mr. Kubiszak, seconded by Mr. Veneman. Any further discussions? Hearing none, please cast your ballots.
Aye.
Mr. Zerflus, aye.
Your Honor.
Yes, we have a motion carried, 8 ayes, 0 nays. Mr. Koth?
I know we took action on item number 9, but I had a thought that crossed my mind. I wanted to see if I could legally make a addition to that motion.
On item 9, Attorney Schill, did you hear Mr. Koth's question?
I guess I'll just state it, and if the city attorney hears me, I'm not going to make a motion until I know I get to go ahead to do it, but here we're sitting on July 21st, and we just voted to geo-restrict the pool. They have a sign up saying what municipalities are allowed in, and they got the computer program where they've been putting the date or the address to see if you get a go or no-go. I know that there needs to be time to change this, and, you know, the pool's going to be open tomorrow, so, you know, our action, I guess, would take effect immediately. So I wouldn't want people showing up to the pool tomorrow and then, you know, just magically overnight, we're turning you away. So if I can legally do it while we're still discussing Property and Finance Committee, I would say to put a date on it that it goes into effect on like the 25th of July, so they got 4 days to take and adjust this, if I can legally make such a motion.
Attorney Schill.
I lost you right there at the end of after you voted on the university thing. Could you repeat that?
We voted to geo-restrict the pool to city only, and
Right.
due to the fact that you probably need time to change this with the computer program and signage and get a notice out, I was figuring giving it 4 days for the change to take effect on the 25th of July, but I'm not sure if I can legally make that motion at this time yet.
No, that would be okay. But I'm assuming then, but it's pass holders that have already purchased in terms of the non-residents, correct? They can't buy get any more.
That's correct.
Yep. No, that's fine. If there's no election from the others to reconsider that motion and change it.
Does the rest of the body, are you okay with reconsidering that motion to include a buffer of 4 days to the 25th? Okay.
I'll make a motion for reconsideration.
Let's let the clerk catch up.
So would that go under the original motion, or is this a total
totally new item? I mean, is this, am I amending what happened before? Is it under the same item?
I would think it'd be separate at the end.
Okay.
So a motion to reconsider item number 9.
Hold on, let me get back to something else.
I'll make a motion to suspend the rules.
Hold on.
Let's let,
And that was number 9, right?
correct.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so who made the motion?
We have a motion by Mr. Koth
Yep.
and seconded by Mr. Kubaschak to suspend the rules. And so we have a,
Okay, suspend the rule, what was the motion to suspend the rules and?
And motion for reconsideration.
so, Sue, correct me if I'm wrong, those are two separate motions, correct?
Suspending the rules first, okay.
And
Well, what rule are we suspending?
I was just going to ask
Yeah.
that, what rules are we suspending?
Deviating from what the agenda says. We already put the item on there, so we have to re-put that item on. Suspending Robert's Rules of Order, what the proper process is.
Right, well, I would just, that you could do a motion to
Reconsider.
reconsider, but I guess whatever you could do by unanimous consent, so if no one has any objection to it, you would need for a motion, but
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm having difficulty here.
Okay, I confused myself also. So how, I guess Attorney Shaw, what do you recommend? How should we proceed? So,
I guess I thought that he would make a motion to reconsider the previous action. It's at the same, since it's at the same meeting, it can be done. You're still on the, well, it was part of the Finance Committee report, so he's first asking the group whether they would reconsider. So you take that vote first, and then assuming that they say, yes, we want to revisit that again, then you would make your new motion, or basically amend the motion to include the date.
okay. Sounds good. So let's take the motion to reconsider.
I'll amend the motion that's currently on the table to a motion to reconsider. Alderperson Kubaschak, would you still hold your second?
So we have a motion and a second to reconsider the action number 9, item 9 of the Finance Committee report. So any further discussion? Seeing none. Oops.
Wait,
Mr. Zerflu?
Nope, it's Finance Director to SRC, and I would just like to say that I really don't know how to say this, but I guess I'll just say it like it is, and it's just saying, I wish we would have had this discussion before we obligated the taxpayers as far as the outlying communities in their participation in this.
Can you restate that? I think we're confused what you were trying to say.
Basically, what I'm saying is that we're restricting outside, city residents, and I hear a lot about they paid for it. And I wish before, when we initially committed to the $5 million of bonding for this project, and now it's hopefully it could be anywhere 7.5 to 10 million, we would have had this discussion before we obligate ourselves and our taxpayers, and had this discussion with the surrounding communities.
Mr. Rio? Mr. Rio? No, we haven't yet. So do you have something to discuss and reconsider, or do you want to take the vote? Go with the vote? Okay. So we have a motion and a second to reconsider the action of item number 9. Please cast your ballots.
Aye.
Motion carried, 7 ayes, 1 nay. So now we can reconsider your motion, Mr. Coe.
All right, I would like the previous motion to stand, but to include that on July 25th, non-residents, it'll take effect as presented on July 25th.
Okay, let's let the clerk catch up. So we have a motion by Coth, second by Catnaugh. So is there any further discussion on this? Mr. Ayo. So the motion is, if you want to repeat, or actually the clerk could.
The motion is to amend the original motion to include an effective date of July 25th. So it is the motion to restrict, let me read it, hold on. To further geo-restrict the aquatic center to city residents and municipalities that have officially partnered with the city, and to include non-residents who have purchased season passes or who have punches left on their paid punch cards with an effective start date of July 25th.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thanks for your comments, Tim. This is a tough one, and I agree with everything that's been said. And I also agree with what Steve said of which way to vote on it. And I, as one who has supported the pool for a long time, but also the one who voted against opening the pool a few weeks ago, and that at that point in time, it crossed my mind, but because I had voted against it, then maybe I should have anyway. I didn't offer any what would happen if we exceeded capacity, which, even though I don't want it opened, we were there to try and make some money to pay the bills. So, other communities that have opened, and I'm not saying all, some have actually, that you call in and reserve a time, that you're going to be there to use it. They split the time frame into 2 spots during the day. You go online and register the day before, so you know you're going to be able to get in. I don't know how feasible that would be, as something to do something like that at this point in time. But it was, if I had voted to go along with opening the pool, that there were some things that I had to bring up in my own mind of foreseeing if we exceeded capacity. And that's what I think the body at the time moved to open the pool under other than the amount that could use it and different communities that were going to be allowed to use it, that probably should have been the point in time of who we were going to restrict it to first. And if Rapids residents didn't fill it up, others could be there and waiting to see if they could get in. It is a tough call. We're in the process of doing it. There's only a few weeks left. I'm not sure when the guards leave, what the official date is. I don't think we have 6 weeks left. It's where I think that this was a regional pool. There was no guarantee of other communities coming in. I totally agree with Steve on what he said. His comments were spot on. And I don't think Rapids people should be denied the opportunity, and not necessarily denied the whole day, but denied that at a certain time they could go in. I haven't gone there yet myself. I voted against the opening of it. My wife and daughter did walk by a couple times. My daughter was home here right after it opened, and it was full. I don't know how many people were waiting in line, but I know there was a comment that they heard from a mother, I assume a mother, of the couple kids that she had with, and I don't know how long they had waited. Maybe it was only 10 minutes, I don't know. That probably said some, well, words that I probably use at different times too, but, and she took the kids by the hand and they left. I don't know how long they were waiting. This is a tough one, and where I agree with everything, the comments that were made, that the city is paying the freight on this. And it is a good deal to come in and pay only $2 more and to use it for what taxpayers are paying. Through the process of we missed the chance probably at the start of this to see where communities would be if they wanted to come in and participate. We went through the process of putting the thing into motion and to try to get others to come in. I sincerely hope that they will, at least some. It's a boon to it can be a boon to the area. It's a beautiful facility, something long desired. A lot of time was put into it of what to come up with. There's a lot more into this pool into the aquatic center than if we had done it 20 years ago when I was trying to do it. It's a lot better, or nicer, a lot more things than what were envisioned. So it is a tough call, and I did vote to just have with Rapids residents, but not just saying that I want to change my mind entirely on that, but I just wanted to throw out what other communities have done in opening up at different time frames so everybody would be able to use it. And obviously if it was not filled on, if you broke it into two sections, if it was not filled on for both sections, that obviously others would be able to go in and use it. So I, at this point in time, late in the game, I don't know that anything like that could be drawn up, but it's something I think that, again, one of those that 3 weeks ago we could have addressed maybe and done something with, but it's, so I guess that the motion is there to do what we want to do with it, and I totally agree with the people who made comments and supported that. I totally agree with the comments they made, because I really hate to see Rapids residents who are footing the bill be shut out, or at least shut out even for a period of time that they got to wait. And some may just say the hell with it and leave, and the wait may have only been 10 or 15 minutes, but they'll just say, well, and they'll be quite upset. The tax money's going to continue to pay for the facility, but for them to be shut out of it. So this is a tough call, and also that it's, again, that the facility was built as a regional facility, and we didn't know, nobody knew what was going to happen and come about. With the COVID thing, I hate to keep going back to it, but unfortunately, I think we had a government that totally let us down on what was really going on, too. And didn't give us much headway to plan for what we wanted to do. And then to come along and to open things, again, it was thrown back into the people's hands and lap of how to do it. And the court and the Fed and the rest, you just sat back and washed their hands from it. You people on the local level, deal with it. So whichever way we go, it's to make us a good guy with some people and a badass with a lot of people. The government failed us. And I know people don't like me when I talk about that, but unfortunately, the government is what we are. We may not admit to what parties we belong to or don't belong to, or what way we lean and whatever. But this is a political group here. We all have our own beliefs. I think every one of us that ran for this position, I don't know that I met anybody over all these years that didn't run to be on here that they didn't have an agenda. People that just run to be good Samaritans to the city, they wanted to see something done. Either change from the direction it was going or to make a new direction. They had an agenda. People don't want to talk in that way, but I've seen it, and they do. If you just want to make it better, that's the agenda. And I guess maybe by just keeping talking, I'm putting off the vote on this, and that I don't want to do, but because I think everybody here is somewhat torn in the same way, or a lot of us are, of how to vote on it. It was to include those with that have passes and that would be from outside of the city, so we wouldn't have to do any rebate or whatever on it, something like that. But I would just hope that the surrounding communities that are watching this will take a hard look at coming on board and participating with us in the future as we go on with this. And to them, if this passes, that it's restricted to Rapids residents, that, and just to include those that have season passes from outside, that we, I think, still want to be good neighbors with you. And I think from some comments that were made back, we're just in different cases that are wishing that you would try to be some good neighbors with us at times too. Because I know some will probably, I'm sure, take offense that we restrict them from being able to use it. From the city standpoint, it's probably the right thing to do. From a public relations standpoint, and that may be what we should all run through our mind quick in our brain computer. Is it even though the talk and the intent is to right, is it the right thing to do at this point in time that we're into this already, and with only a few weeks left to go? Some of this should have been, not to lay blame on anybody, because I ain't going to do that. Because I do that, they got to put blame on me too for not saying anything. some of these things are probably things that we should have addressed before. What would happen if we reached capacity and city residents were delayed from getting in or couldn't get in? There were opportunities of things to set in place for alternative measures to take over or actually set up different ways to do it to start with, even from different shifts for people to go in. So, and I know people probably wouldn't like that at all, but somewhat of where we're at is something that you wouldn't have had a waiting line because people would have known if they could have got in or not got in. So with that, I'll just end with that. I hope I made some sense out of that, but I also want to say that all the comments that were made, I do appreciate them, and I think everybody hit the nail on the head, and I totally respect and understand frustration, and it's a tough call to make. So thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Rayom. If you indulge me here for a second, I agree with everything that Steve said and Jake. You know, this has been a burden that the city residents have to bear. My concern is that without the numbers, we don't know if non-residents or residents are the primary people that are having us hit capacity. If we find out, if we restrict this to rapids only, and we don't even come close to hitting capacity, the astronomical expenses that the city is going to have to bear, the residents, for all the costs associated with operating that pool and the limited sales that we're going to have on concession stands. So without not knowing the numbers, I think it's a little irresponsible. As a taxpayer, I'm already bearing the cost, and I'm going to be bearing additional cost to supporting a pool that maybe our Rapids residents are even hitting capacity. You know, I think it's more prudent that we come up with a better plan that as we get closer to 400, Rapids residents has a priority. But we might find out that there's only a couple hundred residents from Rapids, and then we're going to have a couple hundred sitting open, and we're losing sales at concession, and we're going to have to bear the expense for that. Thank you. Mr. Kubitschek.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm confused once again. What's the motion on the floor? I mean, the motion on the floor is to reconsider the time frame from which we restrict the pool attendees, instead of being tonight once the meeting's over, whenever we call the vote, to the 25th. It isn't to reconsider whether we want to reconsider the whole vote that we did before. I mean, where's discussion at, right? Why are we wasting this time?
It's just a date. Okay. Mr. Catno.
I was just going to speak to what Thad was saying, so he covered it all.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Rayo.
Thank you, and Thad, thank you, I guess, for clarifying that, and I guess maybe there is that motion on the floor, so I just ask if the motion and the seconder would want to take that off the floor and then see what we come up with, a total reconsideration of the whole thing. Because I do, I, if I may, even though it's off from what Thad said, and I don't want to repeat, so I guess I'll just leave it go at that, and we'll see where we go. Because I do have things to add to what Shane said.
Thank you. Mr. Cole?
I canceled my RTS.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to reconsider the motion to include the date of July 25th as the start date to further restrict the geo restrictions to Wisconsin Rapids residents only.
Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
I thought the motion was to reconsider this whole item number 9. That's not correct? Because if it's a case of just extending the date, obviously I'll vote in the affirmative.
Attorney Schill, is it a whole new motion, or is it just a motion to once you go ahead.
Right. I guess I wasn't sure what he had, I assumed that the motion was to reconsider basically the motion, the action in its entirety in order to then make a different motion or a similar motion. However, if the intent was to only reconsider that part of it, then that would have been appropriate too. I guess I wasn't clear on what the motion for reconsideration was that he made.
So this is Jennifer, City Clerk. The original motion was to reconsider to amend it to add the effective date of July 25th.
So it would be a no.
Right, but you have to reconsider
The whole
an action. So what is the action that's reconsidered? Don't go to the next step of what it's going to be. It's what are we reconsidering? And then if it's voted on to reconsider that, then you vote, and then he can, change it.
So the first motion was to reconsider the item, and then the second motion.
Whole item.
So the whole thing, item number 9, the whole geo-restricting.
Was that voted on?
Yes,
And that passed?
that passed.
Okay, so now
So
now that motion, you all agreed that we were going to reconsider the action on that. So now, what is the motion that will dispose of that action? And that could be,
Anything.
anything
So-
regarding it. It's not.
So the motion that was. The motion that was seconded was to amend the original motion as written,
Right.
to add an effective date of July 25th.
So it's a vote on the whole new motion.
Right, exactly. And
You're just not voting on a date. It's a
You're
it's a new
reconsidering the whole
motion. So
thing
you're reconsidering the whole thing
with an effective date of the 25th.
by adding on that.
So if you voted no on this, then we wouldn't be geo-restricting.
Correct.
And, Your Honor, if I could just continue my request, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
I guess, like I said, I don't want to get in a situation where we have 200 people, city residents and those that have, that have contributed to this, absolutely, should have priority, especially when we have to cut the amount of people we're going to allow in. But it's, I don't want to lose revenue either. I did like Joe Terry's idea because it sounds like it's extremely rare. I mean, if I heard everyone right, that we do get in a situation where city residents turned away. So what he said about, maybe capping it at 350 and holding some sort of reserve so that does not happen, I would prefer to do that. I guess that's my whole reasoning for being a little, I guess, resistive, not knowing the numbers like you said.
Thank you, Mr. Zerflu. Mr. Ayo?
Hopefully maybe for the last time on this. Yeah, I guess when this was at finance and was put off to the council meeting tonight, I guess I was hoping that at least we'd have some preliminary figures, maybe not set in stone of exactly from which community or whatever, but how many from actually the city of Wisconsin Rapids, how many from surrounding communities. So I was hoping for some of that to make a decision on, because I hate to see the city residents be left out of it. And at the same token, from what has been said, and Mr. Zerflu just said it, and it's been said by others, and Mayor, you've said it, is that from having, say, 425 people there, not all in there, 25 people waiting, say, if we restrict it to just Rapids residents, and I haven't been there, so I haven't seen who is there. I don't want the pool that we're open, which I didn't want to open, but I don't want to see that it's open, that we only have 275 people there. the thing was built for a reason. My fears were with the COVID and that's why I had to use my own judgment and lose votes at times. I have. But, so I think, but further thinking, I was hoping that we'd have some numbers to look at tonight. But without that, we may be, even though there are Rapids people that I'm hearing from others say, haven't been able to get in on time. I don't know how long the wait time it's been. I'd hate to go from 425 people waiting out front to 275 that are in there using the facility. So it's a tough call. Again, where everybody, I think we all agree with what was said. So I think it's something that we have to, we wanted to, with a reduced capacity, it's not going to make us money like the hope would have been anyway, from the 822 or whatever the number is, that as long as it's going to be open and is open, that, and again, hopefully people use their own judgment and do what they think is right, but I think we want to get as many people in there as we can, and the limit that the health department gave us was the 400. I think somewhat we're fortunate that they probably gave us the 400 because they could have made it less for those that wanted it to be open. And they could have actually said 0. And that would have been the call. So we're going to have a vote on it, and if the motion is there to do it, or the motion is there, and it's to just extend it to the 25th, I'm going to vote against that. I don't know, Sue, if we can have another reconsideration at the same point in time, because I don't know how long you keep reconsidering. I haven't been in one of these for a while, and I left my book at home tonight. Actually, I got a speed wheel to jump to different ones with Robert Sewell. So I guess we just better get to the vote and see where we go from that, but I wanted to put that in there. I just wish that we could have made a decision with more facts in front of us, and that's not slighting anybody. We've only been open a short period of time. I was just hoping we'd have something to look at, so thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Catno.
Thank you. So just as a reminder, this vote just passed 7-1. The motion was being reconsidered to add a date to give more time to residents and staff to prepare for that motion that just passed 7-1. In terms of waiting for data, I sent an email July 9th in the morning asking for data. It's been 12 days. We don't have it. I'll go back to the point of there's not that much time left. We represent the city of Wisconsin Rapids. We're just setting a different date. That was supposed to be it. So why this is all getting rehashed, it seems really unorganized. That's why I think we're setting a terrible precedence that after a vote passes 7-1, we're going to go back and then debate it again and re-vote on it after another 45-minute debate. So I just wanted to get back to the point that this just passed 7-1, and this is to allow an additional 4 days.
Mr. Cole.
Yeah, I wanted to say, first off, to everyone on council, I'm sorry for creating this situation, but I was also thinking about the pool staff and not trying to create a logistical nightmare down there for people that show up tomorrow and then get turned away. I felt that a notice would have been worthy to give time so people can adjust their plans and so on and so forth. I stand by my original vote in the remarks that I said. There was a comment made earlier in this that it would have been nice for the taxpayers of their other municipalities to have notice on this. Well, our meetings aren't super secret. We don't hide our agendas. And somehow, whenever we're talking about an annexation or building something or doing something else, the taxpayers of other municipalities seem to find these agendas anyways, and then they can be here and they can pack the council chambers and they can tell us why what we want to do is a very bad idea and how it's going to hurt them. But on the very same agendas, when we notice that we're building an aquatics facility and the city's going to have to bond for it, there's nobody here. Nobody here. And I understand the comment, and I get it, about an empty pool being a liability that we're going to have to pay for. It's not a good idea. But let's be honest, folks, we're paying for it anyways. One way or another, we're paying for it. Each and every one of us that is a property owner in the city of Wisconsin Rapids, we're flipping the bill for it, whether it's at $400, $275, or $0 for the day because it's closed for inclement weather. We're paying for it. That's all.
Mr. Bemke. Okay. So we have a motion, and the motion is to geo-restrict to the city of Wisconsin Rapids on July 25th, which also includes people who have an out of non-resident seasonal pass. Well, punch cards are just for residents. So any further
And non-residents who,
season passes?
no, from
But, yes, that's right. Yeah. So should there be a partnership?
Right.
Correct. All right. Seeing no other further discussions, please cast your ballots. Mr. Zerflu?
I'll vote aye.
You're voting aye. Okay. Motion carried, 6 ayes, 2 nays. Moving on to tonight's Finance and Property Committee meeting.
Thank you, Your Honor. Property and Finance Committee met at 5 p.m. on July 21st, 2020 in the City Council chambers and via video conferencing. All our members and present included Chairperson Koth, Alderperson Kellogg, and Alderperson Kubitschek, who joined us at 5:23 p.m. Call to order at 5:02 p.m. Item number 2 was the committee will vote to go into closed session pursuant to section 19.85, para 1, para G, with Wisconsin statutes, which reads, conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or likely to become involved. In closed session, the committee will confer with the city attorney and insurance defense counsel concerning strategy and negotiation parameters with respect to Wood County case number 19-CV-190. Motion by Koth, seconded by Kellogg to enter into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statutes 19.85, para 1, para G. Motion carried, 2-0. Item number 3 was the committee will adjourn in closed session. Meeting adjourned in closed session at 6:02 p.m. With that, I move for adoption of the report.
Thank you, Mr. Koth. We have a motion by Koth, seconded by Kellogg to adopt the report. Seeing no discussion, please cast your ballots.
Aye.
Motion carried, 8 ayes, 0 nays. Public Works Committee meeting held July 7th. Mr. Rayo.
I got it. Thank you, Your Honor. I thought tonight I wasn't going to have a lot to say, but on this item I don't, I guess, but to start with. Public Works Committee met at City Council chambers and via remote video conferencing on Tuesday, July 7th, 2020. Tom Rome, Jake Catnaw, and Dean Veneman were present. Others attending on file in the clerk's office. Item number 1 was called the meeting to order. Meeting was called to order at 6:55 p.m. after the conclusion of the Property and Finance Committee meeting. We were scheduled to start actually at 6, but finance ran long that night, and so we adjusted our schedule. Item 2, review the DPW report. The DPW report was reviewed. Item 3, review the degradation ordinance. There's a motion of Catnoff, seconded by Rayland, to approve the degradation ordinance as presented. The motion carried 3-0. Item 4, review request by Jim Geniak to install beam guard in front of his house. There's a motion by Veneman, seconded by Rayland, to consider additional signs to highlight the curve on 2nd Avenue South in accordance with design standards. That motion carried 3-0. Item 5 was to review the referral list. The referral list was reviewed. Item 6 was to adjourn, and the meeting was adjourned at 8:18 p.m. With that, Your Honor, I move for adoption of the Public Works Committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Rayom. We have a motion and a second by Mr. Koth.
I like this pull out 3 and 4.
We have a request to hold out 3 and 4. Everybody okay with that?
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
Yep. So on the balance report, any further discussion? Is there? There's not much on the balance, but but we can vote on the balance. There are a few non-action items. Seeing no discussion, please cast your ballots.
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Zerflu. Mr. Kellogg.
I brought out 3 because,
Mr. Kellogg, it didn't record your vote.
oh, sorry, I thought
problem.
it did.
There
Okay.
you go. Motion carried, 8 ayes, 0 nays. Mr. Kellogg.
I brought out 3 just because I'm on the Water and Light Commission, and it was mentioned that they were going to meet with Joe Terry and so forth. And I just want to make sure that they had input in that, in the final paperwork or whatever.
Thank you. So I did meet with representatives of the water utility and the electric utility. In the packet that you received, there was a request by them that was a minor request, and in discussing this, we added it in. It's number F under exceptions, number 3. There should be no degradation fees for city-owned utility relocation coordinated with a city street reconstruction project. And the effort there was that if it's a relocation ordered by the city adjacent to, maybe on a side street or something like that, that is really out of the control of the city-owned utility, that there wouldn't be degradation fees associated with that. The potential for occurrences of that are very, very slim, but it was a minor request, and that was added. That was the only other concern that was brought up. We did discuss some things, some preferences as far as maybe the street department assisting more in performing some of the pavement restoration versus contractors working for the utility. So some of those things will continue to work out. But as far as the language goes, that was the only change that was requested, and it's in what's proposed for your review tonight.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure we had that meeting.
Thank
I
you.
would make a motion to accept it.
So I have a motion by Mr. Kellogg to adopt or approve the degradation ordinance, and a second by Mr. Catna. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please cast your ballots.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carried, 8 ayes, 0 nays. Mr. Kellogg, item 4.
Yeah, number 4, there's a real serious concern about the curve in front of Mr. Gigniak's home or residence. And it's a sharp curve, and just replacing signs doesn't deal with the concern that the pedestrian might have or the resident might have. So all it does is say signs. It doesn't say stop signs or pedestrian signs or chevron signs where there's an arrow going around. So it's really ambiguous, and I like to table this and have it go back to the committee for further discussion to get more specifics and so forth.
Is that a motion?
That's my motion.
Is there a second to send it back to committee? Second by Mr. Koth. Any further discussion? Mr. Rayom.
Thank you, Your Honor. Joe, would you have anything that you'd want to say this evening before we vote on this, for the reason why the action was taken, what was done, so?
So that particular curve is 54 degrees. We've checked it. It's been suggested that it's really sharp. 54 degrees is not, unlike other curves that we have within the city. And the concern about the beam guard has been concern expressed about traffic that may run into it, that if the beam guard weren't present, might help protect private residents. In all of the years that that particular beam guard was there hasn't been that type of accident. If someone was going to go from the street 50 feet across someone's yard into someone's house, a barrier such as beam guard would be partly destroyed at least once. It never has been. And it is traffic control devices such as beam guards are prescribed by engineering principles and practice. And the purpose of it is to protect a vehicle from a hazard. There's no hazard to protect the vehicle from at that location. So it's just simply not warranted. There's a number of criteria that are used when determining whether to put an obstruction, a roadside hazard, such as a sign or a piece of beam guard next to a roadway, because it is a hazard. If somebody bumps into that versus maybe hitting the curb and coming to a stop a foot behind the curb or whatever, if it was slippery and they bumped something, every time someone hits that beam guard, they're going to cause damage to their vehicle. So one of the criteria is the hazard that you're protecting that vehicle from worse than the vehicle striking the beam guard? And again, there's just no warrant for it in this location. And so the staff's position is that this is really a private request. This has nothing to do with the traveling public, has nothing to do about vehicular safety. It's a perceived concern by a resident who genuinely perceives that there's a concern there. In the review of the accident reports, in our engineering review and review of engineering principles and practices for warrants for this type of structure, the fear is unfounded. The curve is not sharp, and we just don't recommend to continue to drag this out. But again, if there's desire for further discussion, I think staff's made its position pretty clear a number of times on this matter.
Thank you. Is that all, Mr. Rio? Okay. Mr. Catnall, is that next?
Thank you. I'm on the Public Works Committee that took this up in the first place. I still stand with staff recommendation on this. I would also like to note that there is a cost to adding that beam guard. Joe, I believe you said was it 13,000? So I would just like to say that we did take this up. This has been vetted. I don't see a reason for it to go back to committee, as we have already done this, and we did come to a compromise with the signs. So I'm going to vote against this going to committee, as we just went over that this month.
Thank you. Mr. Kellogg?
Okay, the motion to additional signs to highlight the curve on the 2nd Avenue South. How many signs? What kind of signs? Are there stop signs? Are there pedestrian crossing signs? Where in this document that we got from Public Works that shows the signs? It says signs. It's ambiguous. And if it's going to come to some closure by the Public Works Committee, I would think on the Public Works Committee, they would like to know. The concern was expressed. What kind of signs are they going to be putting in? We don't know that, according to this document right here. So why not go back to the Public Works, and if there was a concern about the beam guard and other things, but at least show us the signs that you're going to be putting in to hopefully resolve some of the issues that people have expressed on that corner. That's all I'm asking. It's too ambiguous. to be able to say, right now, we're going to pass it, and we'll show up to have one sign that might be, who knows what? Is it a stop sign and that's it? So I'm saying, why not be having all your cards on the table, show exactly what it's going to look like, what's it going to sound like, so that when we come back to the common council, we can say, wow, there's going to be 6 signs. There's going to be a warning sign, there's going to be a pedestrian sign, there's going to be a stop sign, there's going to be whatever those signs would be. But we're making it on a very ambiguous general statement. And we don't know what we would be voting on until it goes back to Public Works and they specify exactly what it's going to look like and sound like to resolve the issues that residents have or pedestrians might have in that corner. That's all I'm saying. It's too ambiguous. So.
Thank you. Mr. Kubitschek?
Thank you, Mr. Kellogg. I'm going to support your motion to send it back to committee because I believe that we don't have enough information in front of us to vote on this, to properly vote on this.
Mr. Benjamin?
Yes, as I recall, they were directional signs, as you look at the motion in accordance with design standards, but the way it's laid out on here, I agree with Mr. Kellogg and Mr. Kubitschek. There's not enough information. I think we at least need to highlight exactly what how that signage was and how it'd be laid out. And I don't recall, Mr. Catnaugh just mentioned the dollar amount of the guardrail. I don't remember that being brought up at that point, but I guess that'd be interesting. I didn't see that in the record what the guardrail was. If I missed it, I apologize. So I think I'd vote to take it back to committee as well.
Mr. Rayon?
I'll just end with that, and I'm going to vote against sending it back to committee, but that the motion, you can eliminate stop sign. That's not there. It's to consider additional signs to highlight the curve. So it's not a stop sign. It's to highlight the curve. In layman's terminology, I guess that's some type of arrow, that there's a curve. I don't know that I ever went down a highway that had a big curve arrow in front of me and it said stop then. That's what this is. It's to highlight the curve. It's an oversized sign. That's what was talked about through the whole few meetings that we had on this. And, you know, again, it's one you just like say, put it back in. And what? But the standards are there. And I guess, to me, I haven't been shown a reason that we don't go up by what the standards are, that we don't make an exception in this case. That there are cases where we make exceptions on things or whatever, but I don't know that this, in my mind, I don't know that this is one, that we do that. And so, to me, what the signs are, it's going to show that there's a curve. And it was talked about an oversized sign to highlight it more. So the basic resolve of this is that by some it's not liked and others it is liked. The resolve, in the resolve, and that's not put the guardrails back in. That's what the issue's about. It's there in the minutes that it passed to consider additional signs to highlight the curve. That's, it passed not to put the guardrails in. Let's put the signage up, that there's curve there. I believe the speed limit there is 20. I should know, I've driven it enough times in all these decades. Is it 25? Okay, 25, I've been corrected. And I've been going too slow at times. Thank God. But I think this is one of these that, if it goes back to committee, my guess is it's going to come back somewhat, I think, probably like it is now, but maybe you're going to have a picture in front of you that's the arrow. That it's just, this becomes one of those that it's, may not seem the right, maybe seems not to be the right thing to do. But again, the motoring public has to take responsibility too of their actions on the highway. And by that, I'm not saying that that puts residents and walkers and that in danger, but it's just somebody jumped the curb to get to the house. Is going to have to be going well over the speed limit, I would think, to get there. And that's it. This, yeah, I won't even go that way, that route. But so it's just, I'll stand by what the committee, the action they took, and I just wanted to somewhat clarify, if I could, it was not included in the motion that there would be a stop sign. So that, I think, people can remove that from your mind. It was arrow to highlight the curve for the motoring public. And I'll stick with what the decision that the committee made, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rayom. Mr. Kellogg?
I was at the committee, and I understand what everybody's saying. All I want is, I don't think the Common Council should just pass something that's general, that you don't know what you're passing. You just don't know what you're passing. And let's say the signage, if it's an arrow, an oversized arrow, a small arrow, 2 arrows, or whatever, you're not going to come back and be able to change that. Now's the time just to go back to the committee, have people give clarity as to what it is, so you know what you're making the motion on, rather than just arrows. And that's all. Forget about the stop sign. I mean, there was a discussion of a stop sign, but it's not in the motion. And I threw that out just rambling on. But basically, let's just see the signs. And then the Public Works can make whatever decision they want. They look nice, they're clear and everything else. And then come back to the Common Council and say, this is what the signs will look like and this is the arrangement. That's all. It's not much major than that, so.
Thank you. Seeing no other discussion, we'll vote on sending this item back to committee. Please cast your ballots.
Nay.
Motion defeated. 5 nays, 3 yeas. 3 yeas, 5 nays. I entertain another motion.
Seeing that motion was defeated, I'll make a motion to approve the item as presented in the Public Works Committee packet.
Yep, let's let the clerk get that in there. Item 4. I already moved on 4. Thank you. So we have a motion to approve the item as presented, and seconded by Mr. Rayom. I think the discussion would be redundant, but seeing none, please cast your ballots.
Aye.
Motion carried. 6 ayes, 2 nays. All right, Mr. Kubaschak, Human Resources from July 14th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Human Resources Committee met July 14, 2020, 4:30 PM in the council chambers. All committee members were present. Everybody else you can find on file in the clerk's office. Item number 1, or I called order. Item number 2, discuss and consider approval of proposed changes to employee dress code policy. Motion by Zerflu, second by Bemke to approve revised dress code policy. Motion carried 3-0. Item number 3, discuss and consider approval of proposed changes to the policy regarding communications for employee memorial services. Motion by Zerflu, second by Bemke was carried to approve the changes. Motion carried 3-0. Motion and consider approval of proposed changes to the wage and salary policy. Motion by Kubaschak, second by Zerflu to amend the wage and salary policy to remove the restriction that employees can only progress to step 6, which would be the midpoint. Any movement on the salary schedule will still need to be budgeted and be pursuant to developed policies. Motion carried 3-0. Item number 5, discuss and consider approval of an extension to the emergency sick leave policy. Motion by Zerflu, second by Bemke was carried to approve the extension of the city's emergency sick leave policy till September 30th, 2020, and also to approve to extend any public safety union agreements regarding this sick leave. Motion carried 3-0. Item number 8, we moved items around on this. Item number 8 was taken out of order via unanimous consent. Discussion on employee recruitment. Deb Huggle gave an update on employee recruitment. Item number 6, motion by Kubaschak, second by Bemke, was to go into closed section pursuant to section 19.85, subparent 1, subparent C of the Wisconsin statutes, which reads, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data to any public employee over which a governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. Roll call vote taken. All members voted in the affirmative, and the motion passed. In closed session, the committee discussed candidates for vacant positions. No action was taken. Item 7, the committee did not return into open session. Item number 8, the committee adjourned in closed session. Motion by Zerflu, second by Bemke, was carried to adjourn in closed session. The meeting adjourned at 5:33 p.m. And with that, I make a motion to approve this consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Kubaschak. We have a motion by Mr. Kubaschak, seconded by Mr. Katna. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, please cast your ballots.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carried 8 ayes, 0 nays. Mr. Kubaschak, tonight's HR meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Human Resources Committee met earlier this evening, July 21st, 2020. Meeting was all committee members present. Everybody else will be on file in the clerk's office. Chairperson Kubaschak called the meeting to order at 6:10 p.m. Item number 2, discuss and consider approval of proposed changes to the job description for the position of park supervisor. Motion by Kubaschak, second by Bemke to approve. Motion carried 3-0. Item number 3, discuss and consider approval of proposed changes to the job description for the position of human resources director and changing the title of the position to human resources manager. Motion by Kubaschak, second by Bemke was carried to approve 3-0. Item number 4, adjournment. Motion by Kubaschak, second by Bemke, was carried to approve adjourning the meeting 3-0 at 6:14 p.m. With that, I'll make a motion to approve this consent agenda.
Thank you. Motion by Mr. Kubaschak, seconded by Mr. Bemke. Mr. Rayon.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a question, and maybe I am just reading that it was in somewhere else, and I'm just not catching it, but or missed it. On it'd be page 2 of 3 there, right at the top. and it is crossed off, and in red, the supervisors establish in the park, recreation, and senior center budgets. Where does that go now?
Mr. Terry, do you know?
When I read that again, I guess last night and today, and I'm glad I highlighted it because I probably would have forgot it. Because I think it might have, as we get into the budget setting process or something, somebody may question who has the authority to do that, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't look at a different.
I guess without speaking out of turn, I think I can answer that for you, Mr. Rayom. That caught my eye 2 months ago. This was originally going to be on a committee agenda 2 months ago. I seen that, and I took it off. It was actually going to be a special HR committee meeting, and we didn't have time to discuss this. So I also seen that, and it's something looked goofy, but this was an original that should have been updated at one time that was never updated, and the salary was never updated. And it's a case where there wasn't any other document that corresponds with this, and that pay was originally a part-time pay, and the red is crossed off, and it should have been updated at one time, but it wasn't. So now we're updating an old copy that was never updated in the first place for the salary portion of it.
And I'm not disagreeing if that's the case, but I think then should still have the answer of where it falls. That's all I'm asking for. I guess if it was to have been updated in the past, what was the resolve in the past of where this fell then?
I guess it went from my is Deb still online? No, probably not. Because Deb Hoggle was the one that briefed me on this, and you're right. I mean, something should have been corrected in the past so that it didn't kind of stand out and say, wait a second, what's going on here? But that park supervisor position, from my understanding, has been a full-time position for a while. And it was a previous council that had changed that and had budgeted it, and it's a full position. So, but yeah, I mean, realistically, it is something that probably should have been fixed way back when.
I agree. That position should establish the budget for the Park and Rec Department. That would be the department that they oversee, and they should establish that. And I think, I guess that should be something I think the council should add back into the job description, because that will be a function of that. Yeah, I think that should be back in, because that will be a function of that supervisor, that department. If everyone's okay with that. Any further discussions? And you're okay with us adding that back in there? In the job description? Okay. What's that? Does that need to be included in a motion, do you think? No. We can update that. Okay. Yeah, because it definitely should be a duty. Seeing no further discussions, please cast your ballots.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Kubiszek? Sure. Motion carried, 8 ayes, 0 nays. All right, on to reports of other committees, commission, boards, and department reports.
Make a motion to accept the balance of the reports and place on file.
Thank you, Mr. Koth. We have a motion by Mr. Koth and a second by Mr. Katnow to place these reports on file. Any further discussion? Seeing none, please cast your ballots. Oh, I'm sorry.
Just a question, if I may, and it has to do with the police department report, and I try to read these over every month to get through them, but I just have a question on it'd be the page 2 of the report, and that has PD responded to, and maybe I'm reading it wrong, so I just wanted to clarify in my mind. Responded to 1,756 incidents and calls for service in June 2020. June 2019 was 1,294. Quite a difference, and I'm not saying the numbers are wrong. And then the next part is total incidents and calls for service to date in 2020 is 8994, and the total for 2019, if I'm reading that, the whole year, is 10703. Has there been that big of a uptick in incidents? I'm just asking for clarification. I'm wondering what the, and maybe you don't have the answer tonight. Okay, could. Okay. Yeah, what caught my eye was just a big difference in numbers from last year to this year, and from last year up to June of now, and then what the total was last year, that even though the total last year is higher than up till June of now, but there's not a big difference in of what that is for the rest of this year, for the next half of the year. If it continues like it was, won't quite double it, but a high percentage will go up. So it's just something that caught my eye reading this over of, not disagreeing with the numbers are, just wondering if there was some type of reason for it.
Thank you. Any further questions? Please cast your ballots. Tyler, we lost.
Still passes.
Huh.
Is there?
Yeah, the lights are off on Cisco.
Well, here, let me just get a hold of him, I'll put him on speaker, but I have speaker. So hand me when you're done, hand me your phone.
Hey, Joe, we need you to vote on the balance of the reports and adjournment. Can I give you to Jennifer, put you on speaker? Okay, hold on.
Okay, how do you vote?
I vote aye, and I apologize for that. I don't know what happened here.
That's okay.
It's our end.
Okay.
Motion carried, 8 ayes, 0 nays. Last item on the agenda is to adjourn.
So move.
We have a motion by Rome. Oh, hold on. We should, we don't have referrals on here.
Yeah, I have a referral to the Finance and Property. About 8 months ago, I put in a referral about police body cameras, and then we had the COVID thing and so forth, and they even invited me over to show me the cameras and how they're used. But again, I'd like to have a report to the Finance and Property as to the numbers. Do we have enough numbers? How they're used? How they were trained? Just to have an update, because that was a significant amount of money, and there might even be more money from the federal government for body cameras too. So just an update.
Okay, and Deputy Chief Kriskowski was updating me that they've had a lot of success with them. Also, I have another referral. Do you still want it, Mr. Catnaugh?
I do.
Okay.
Just to address it quickly, we covered most of it tonight. It has to do with the Aquatic Center and the capacity to better accommodate Wisconsin Rapids citizens. Also, though, what I would like to see go to the committee is discussions for next year in reducing the resident rate or adjusting those and the non-resident rates, and then a discussion around the monitoring system of who's leaving the park. As Mr. Terry mentioned earlier, they're currently doing it manually. So just a conversation piece to start. It would be in August here for next year.
Perfect. Sounds good. Thank you. Any others? Seeing none, so We need a motion to adjourn. So we have Mr. Ayon, and we have a second by Mr. Koth. And hit your buttons, please cast your ballots.
Alderperson Zerflu, you still there?
I'm here.
How do you vote on adjournment?
Aye.
Motion carried, 8 ayes, 0 nays. Thank you, everybody, for hanging in there.
Awesome.